Hello and welcome to TVB News. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority is relaxing the city's mortgage policy to allow buyers to borrow more money to buy properties. Banks will ease the cap for loan-to-value ratios for residential property. The Monetary Authority says the decision to relax mortgage rules was made after considering a series of factors, including the trend of property prices, transaction volumes, as well as the local and external economic environment. For self-occupied residential properties with a value at or below $15 million, the cap of the loan-to-value ratio will be increased to 70%. Flats valued between $15 to $30 million will be eligible for up to 60% of mortgage financing. For luxury homes exceeding $30 million in value, as well as properties for investment or rental purposes, the loan cap remains unchanged at 50%. The Monetary Authority said residential property prices dropped around 13% compared with pre-pandemic levels. Despite inflationary pressures and high interest rates, the local banking system remains robust.
This is the first time that the HKMA has relaxed the counter-cyclical macroprudential measures for residential properties since they were introduced in 2009. We would like to emphasize that even with these adjustments, the Hong Kong banking sector has ample buffers to cope with any challenges from a sharp correction in property prices.
Commercial and industrial property buyers, too, see a higher mortgage cap with a maximum loan-to-value ratio raised from 50 to 60%. Premier Li Qiang has met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who's on a 4-day visit in Beijing. Li said China and U.S. will be seeing more rainbows after the storm. Yellen meanwhile said Washington does not plan to decouple with China and that it seeks a healthy competition. Sharon Tang reports.
The meeting between Premier Li Qiang and U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was held at the Great Hall of the People on Friday afternoon. Li said Yellen's visit is closely watched by the entire world. Li said that there was a rainbow in the sky when Yellen arrived at the airport in Beijing on Thursday. He likened the situation to Sino-U.S. relations, saying it's not just always rain and storm, and the two countries are bound to see more rainbows.
The United States, in certain circumstances, will need to pursue targeted actions to protect its national security. But we should not allow any disagreement to lead to misunderstandings that needlessly worsen our bilateral economic and financial relations.
Yellen also attended a meeting with business leaders earlier. She stressed Washington does not seek separation between the two economies.
A decoupling of the world's two largest economies would be destabilizing for the global economy, and it would be virtually impossible to undertake.
Yellen stressed the U.S. will ensure high-level talks to continue between the sides in order to create a favorable environment for the healthy development of economic and trade relations. Earlier, Yellen met with former Vice Premier Liu He and Governor of the People's Bank of China Yi Gang to discuss economic issues. Yellen's Beijing visit follows that of Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who met President Xi last month in the highest-level U.S. visit to Beijing in 5 years. The Chinese Finance Ministry called Yellen's visit a concrete measure towards carrying out an agreement by President Xi Jinping and Joe Biden during a meeting in Bali last year. It added there will be no winners in trade wars or decoupling and broken chains. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Japan's nuclear regulator has approved Tokyo Electric Power Company to pour more than 1 million tons of radioactive water into the ocean. Beijing vows to take all necessary measures to ensure the safety of consumers amid concerns over Japanese food. The South Korean government said it respected the findings by the UN Nuclear Energy Watchdog, which supports Tokyo's assessment of the situation. That's despite opposition by Korean politicians and the fishery sector. Tracy Furness has more.
Following on from the International Atomic Energy Agency report this week, Japan's nuclear regulator approved on Friday for the utility Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, to start releasing more than 1 million tons of radioactive water into the ocean. TEPCO ran the destroyed Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. The South Korean government on Friday approved Japan's Fukushima water discharge plan.
여러 번 말씀드린 대로
Yu Guk-hee, chairperson of Nuclear Safety and Security Commission, said, "We reviewed the plan formulated by TEPCO. We confirmed if the water is discharged to the standard and target level consistent with international standards." Liberal opposition lawmakers who control the majority in South Korea's parliament have vowed an all-out fight against the Japanese discharge plans. They accuse the government of putting the nation's health at risk by trying to improve relations with Tokyo. And shoppers at this fish market in Seoul expressed concern. This shop owner said, "Japan says there is no problem scientifically, but I am still concerned. But everything's already been decided." And this housewife thinks it's dangerous. Even South Korean fish. I will have doubts whether it would be safe to eat. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi said he was extremely confident in the agency's assessment of a Japanese plan to release treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant into the ocean amid heavy criticism from China and others.
We do not endorse the plan or recommend this to be done. We say this plan is consistent with the standards. So I think the qualification is important because they often say this is one-sided. We do not take sides. I'm not on the side of Japan or on the side of China or on the side of Korea. The standards apply to all in the same way.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
As Japan prepares to release treated nuclear wastewater into the sea, China will tighten scrutiny on Japanese food imports. While it is not sure yet if Hong Kong will follow the import restrictions, citizens have mixed views towards the possibility. Since the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns 12 years ago, China has banned food imports from 10 Japanese prefectures. Mainland authorities announced on Friday the ban will continue. That will cover regions including Fukushima, Ibaraki, and Tokyo. Food from other parts of Japan, especially marine products, will receive strictly 100% screening of their certification documents and be inspected. Monitoring of radioactive substances will be strengthened. On the International Atomic Energy Agency's approval of Japan's wastewater discharge plan, Mainland Customs said the report did not fully reflect the views of all experts involved in the evaluation. Chinese authorities vow to take all necessary measures to ensure the safety of consumers. For Hong Kong, Chief Executive John Lee said he will consider experts' opinions to decide whether to ban imports of high-risk Japanese produce. In some supermarkets in Hong Kong, it is still possible to buy food imported from the 10 prefectures banned by the mainland.
I'm not too worried because Japan isn't our only source of seafood. I feel like even if they do release treated nuclear waste, I think they're going to be quite thorough and make sure that it won't be too bad.
Right now, Hong Kong is not following the regulation from China. Maybe I'm just worried the price may be more expensive.
It'll be harder for those smaller businesses to survive, especially if people are going to go somewhere where they might find cheaper, or like the bigger companies that can afford to make it cheaper.
China is the largest export destination for Japan's seafood, taking up more than 20% of its export value. Hong Kong is only second to the mainland, importing nearly 20% of Japan's marine products. Some Japanese restaurants in the city said business has not been affected so far, but a lot of operators have tried to source more Japanese seafood from prefectures further away from Fukushima. Meanwhile, lawmaker Chan Hui-yan, who chairs the legislature's food safety panel, said the SAR should follow the mainland's practice. She questions whether it is worth spending tens of millions of taxpayers' money annually to double-screen Japanese produce. 5 former Demosisto members have been arrested on suspicion of using an online platform to financially aid overseas fugitives who broke the national security law. 4 of them were granted bail. Chief Executive John Lee urged residents to stay away from the NSL fugitives, citing that their crimes are of a serious nature. The suspects included former Demosisto chairperson Ivan Lam and members Liu Wai-lim and Arnold Chung. They were suspected of being involved in the operation of online shopping platform Punish Me and using the funds to support NSL fugitive Nathan Law. Despite being released on bail, the suspects are required to report to the police at the beginning of next month. The government has also issued arrest warrants for former lawmakers Ted Hui and Dennis Kwok. Police cracked down on a fraud syndicate that allegedly hired people as clerks and convinced them to buy the so-called London gold for millions of dollars. Currently, such investment activity is not under the regulation of Hong Kong Monetary Authority. 3 people were arrested, including the mastermind. Officers seized multiple computers and bank documents during the operation. The police earlier received reports from residents about the scams. The victims, aged between 27 and 70, said they were told to open up bank accounts and invest nonstop. In one case, the victim lost almost $3 million. Police arrested 2 men and 1 woman aged between 30 and 49, believed to be the mastermind and core members of the syndicate, at an office in Tsim Sha Tsui. Officers also warned residents to be cautious against posts that pay exceptionally well but do not require experience and high education levels when looking for part-time or summer jobs. Alzheimer's drug Leqembi has been given standard approval in the U.S., clearing the way for wider insurance coverage. The Food and Drug Administration included its strongest safety warning when giving the green light. The medicine must carry a label warning about the risks of potentially dangerous brain swelling. The antibody removes sticky deposits of protein called amyloid beta from patients who suffer with Alzheimer's. It is the first treatment for the deadly disorder to achieve approval. The disease has eluded drug makers' efforts for decades. President Xi Jinping visited Jiangsu province on an inspection tour for the People's Liberation Army Eastern Theater Command. Xi talked about strengthening the nation's defenses and the need to increase preparation for conflict. Timothy Lee reports.
Yesterday afternoon, the president made his way to the PLA's Eastern Theater Command, meeting with the military's top brass. Upon his arrival, the president sent his greetings to all soldiers of the Eastern Command Zone. Xi emphasized his confidence in the Eastern Theater's command's ability to carry out its task of the protection and reunification of the country. The president stressed that as global tensions are rising, China must be more aware of potential conflicts and boost preparations for them. He reiterated Beijing's stance on protecting the nation's sovereignty and ability to develop with security. On Wednesday and Thursday, the president toured Jiangsu province for 2 consecutive days, visiting the Suzhou Industrial Park to inspect the country's progress in technological development. Built in 1994, the park was constructed under a joint effort by China and Singapore. Xi then paid a visit to a local semiconductor manufacturer. He then spoke with residents at Suzhou's Pingjiang Road Historic District about issues related to the preservation of the old town. The president also traveled to Nanjing and toured the Purple Mountain Laboratories to inspect the research work. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Back locally, 2 teenagers were reported missing from a cyclone campsite last night. The police found the youngest earlier today at Sham Shui Po. Sources say that the 2 boys ran away from the campsite to visit a friend's home. Timothy Lee again.
2 missing young persons reported at Sai Kung yesterday. The boys, aged 13 and 15, were last seen at the Outward Bound campsite at Taimangzai village. Despite the incident, a number of teenagers were seen entering the campsite this morning. According to the Outward Bound website, they occasionally hold camping and outdoor activities. Sources say the 2 teens involved began residing at the St. Stephen's Society at the beginning of this year. St. Stephen's primarily functions as a rehabilitation home for people that include recovering drug addicts and those with family problems. The 15-year-old was reportedly sent to the facility after committing a crime. The boys arrived at the Sai Kung campsite on Monday with 5 others and were due to stay until next Monday. The missing teens stayed in the same tent. By 7 the next morning, they were reported missing. Outward Bound staff contacted the police. Preliminary investigations indicated the instructor kept their mobile phones, wallets, and other personal items belonging to the 2 teens. Other members of the outdoor excursion said they were unaware of their whereabouts. No surveillance cameras were found on the premises. Reports say that after the parents of the two teenagers made missing persons reports, the two boys contacted their families but did not reveal their location. Earlier today, authorities successfully tracked down the 13-year-old at Shamshui-Po. He was later taken to the police station. Lawmaker Teck Chi-yun said the missing teens were not forced to stay, but they should have let their carers know if they wanted to go out to do something urgent or reasonable.
The mother of one of the teenagers involved posted on social media yesterday about her missing child at this cyclone campsite. As of this morning, the campsite continued offering outdoor education courses. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Earth set a new record this week for unprecedented high global temperatures on Thursday. The planetary average hit 17.23 degrees Celsius Thursday, surpassing the 17.18 degrees set Tuesday and equaling Wednesday. This data comes from the University of the Maine's Climate Reanalyzer, a tool that uses satellite data and computer simulations to measure the world's condition. That average includes places that are sweltering under dangerous heat, like in Jiangsu, China, which checked in at 43.3 degrees Celsius. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.